In 1859, Thomas Austin, a wealthy British settler, thought he was doing something harmless. He wanted a little European charm in his Victorian estate. 24 wild rabbits were released into the Australian bush, a private hunting reserve, nothing more. But those 24 rabbits were the opening act of a catastrophe. Australia had no predators ready to control them, no foxes, no snakes, no checks on their appetite, and rabbits. Rabbits don't just multiply, they explode. By the 1890s, Australia's landscape was unrecognizable. Hillsides seemed to move, not from wind, but from relentless waves of rabbits, devouring crops, stripping pastures bare, and churning the soil into dust. Farmers watched in despair as their livelihoods vanished beneath tiny teeth. By 1920, the economic toll was staggering. Millions of Australian dollars lost every year, millions more in U.S. terms. Beyond money, soil eroded, ecosystems collapsed, and Australia faced a problem bigger than anyone had imagined. How do you stop an unstoppable invasion? Australia tried everything: poison, traps, hunting, dogs even took part. Nothing worked. The rabbits thrived across vast, open grasslands. The country was a paradise for them. Then came an audacious idea: a fence. Not just any fence. A barrier to separate pest from farmland. In 1901, the first state barrier fence rose in Western Australia, stretching 1,800 kilometers, the world's longest at the time. The construction was brutal. Workers braved 45 degrees Celsius heat, sandstorms, and water shortages. Camels carried rolls of wire. Horse-drawn wagons creaked across unforgiving terrain. Sections were buried in shifting sand or washed away in floods. And yet, they kept going. Cost? £1.2 million. In today's money, over $1.2 billion. A gamble on wire and human endurance. But for a while, it worked. Agricultural losses dropped, pastures began to recover. Farmers dared to hope again. By the 1920s, another problem arose, one that was native, not imported. Dingoes, Australia's wild dogs, were attacking livestock. Farmers needed a solution. The answer was inspired by the rabbit-proof fence, a bigger, bolder barrier. The dingo fence. Its goal? Keep dingoes from crossing into fertile, pastoral lands. At its peak in the 1950s-60s, the dingo fence spanned over 5,600 kilometers. Today, it stretches 5,300 kilometers, from Queensland to the cliffs of South Australia, a line so vast it could run from London to Istanbul and nearly back again. The fence worked, but it also revealed an unexpected truth. Dingoes are keystone predators. Where dingoes roam freely, foxes and feral cats are kept in check, allowing native species like bilbies and numbats to thrive. South and east of the fence, the absence of dingoes caused smaller predators to explode, threatening biodiversity. A fence, it seemed, could change the very balance of life across the continent. These weren't just walls of mesh, they were ecological experiments. The state barrier fence began as a defense against rabbits, but it adapted over time. Later versions kept out emus, kangaroos, and feral pigs. Every barrier reshaped the ecosystem, creating pockets where native species could recover. Meanwhile, the dingo fence taught Australia a critical lesson. Predators matter. By excluding one, you unleash another. By controlling invasives with fences, you create natural laboratories to observe how ecosystems stabilize or collapse. It's science writ large across thousands of kilometers of red earth. Behind the fences were thousands of workers, risking heat stroke, exhaustion, and isolation. In the early 20th century, building a fence wasn't a weekend project. Depots had to be set up along remote stretches, water hauled in by camels. Posts were hammered, wires strung, kilometers of desert conquered, one laborious section at a time. Maintenance never stopped. Sand shifts, floods, animals, they all tested the fences relentlessly. Fence runners patrolled 1,000 kilometers of dingo fence daily. It was aphically work. Each hole could let in devastation: rabbits, foxes, dingoes, or pigs. And yet, they persisted. Without them, the fences would fail. The survival of ecosystems and livelihoods depended on their grit. Fast forward a century. In Queensland, farmers faced the limits of mega fences. Enter cluster fencing, smaller, interconnected boundaries around groups of properties. These fences reduced livestock losses by over 90%, allowed controlled access to water, and minimized ecological disruption. Kangaroos were no longer culled indiscriminately, and native grasslands recovered. Economics followed the ecology. Projects like the Murray-Darling Basin Initiative added $15.5 million in value with $11.1 million investment. South Australia's dingo fence could generate $120.3 million over 20 years. Physical barriers, it seemed, were profitable as well as protective. Yet fences are not perfect. Inside dingo-free zones, foxes and cats surged. Native mammals and birds suffered. Kangaroos overgrazed pastures requiring human intervention. Indigenous communities argue that fences disrupted traditional land practices, severing cultural connections. Ethically and ecologically, fences are double-edged. They protect, but they constrain. They heal, but they fragment. They are solutions demanding constant vigilance, adaptation, and scientific oversight. The story doesn't end at its borders. In New Zealand, predator-free sanctuaries borrow the exclusion fence model to save native birds. In Africa and North America, fences are being trialed to protect endangered species and restore degraded ecosystems. Australia's innovation demonstrates a broader principle. Sometimes, human ingenuity can give nature a second chance. Physical boundaries, carefully designed, can allow life to rebound. From desperation to hope, Australia's fences tell a story of resilience. A simple idea, wire and mesh, saved farms, revived species, and shaped modern conservation. They remind us that ecology is a balance. Intervening carries risks, yes, but doing nothing is often worse. Fences, flawed and costly, have shown that patience, precision, and understanding can turn catastrophe into recovery. Today, as climate change and invasive species challenge the land anew, these fences evolve with technology, AI monitoring, self-repairing mesh, and integrated land restoration. But the core truth remains unchanged. Boundaries can heal, protect, and inspire. It all began with 24 rabbits on a Victorian estate. A century later, thousands of kilometers of fences tell a story of human perseverance, ecological insight, and the delicate dance between survival and stewardship. Australia's fences are more than structures. They are symbols of hope. Proof that even in the harshest landscapes, thoughtful intervention can restore life, protect communities, and offer a blueprint for a world struggling with biodiversity loss. In the end, it's not about controlling nature, it's about learning from it, adapting, and finding balance. And in that, Australia has shown the world a remarkable truth. Sometimes, the simplest ideas, built with care and courage, can last far longer than the most complex solutions.